In 2009, Brazil, Russia, India, and China together called in a meeting called the BRICS Summit. Now, this was essentially a meeting where they were inviting developing economies to talk back to an idea that we need to have a protection organization for the global south. Now, this eventually came to be called BRIC. And in 2010, South Africa attended the second BRICS summit, and eventually South Africa became a member of BRICS. And that's how these association BRIC became BRICS. Now, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, today Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran, and United Arab Emirates together make BRICS. As an association, as a group, BRICS originally started as a forum, but today it is becoming a global organization. BRICS accounts to 37% of world's GDP. And in some of the Western historical context, or Western politicians and Western economists consider BRICS to be an absolute Eastern alternative or a nation alternative for G7. And most of these guys, some other countries describe BRICS as anti-Western, anti-American grouping. However, BRICS mainly says that their intention is to protect the interests of the global south. The global south is those countries which are below the equator, essentially, which were classified during the Cold War era as developing nations. BRICS has implemented many initiatives like the BRICS New Development Bank. It's more like World Bank of the BRICS. BRICS Contingent Reserve Arrangement, which is for emergency payments, more like BRICS IMF. And BRICS Pay, like a pay system similar to Global Visa and India's UPI. And also BRICS Joint Statistical Publications. And at this stage, BRICS remains one of the most important and active organizations for the global south. And given the recent tariffs being done by Donald Trump on India and Brazil and Russia and China and all these changes which Donald Trump is doing, BRICS nations seems to be one of the biggest attempts by the global world to give up on the world or give up on the American domination of the economy. Now, one key idea which has been coming up quite often recently is the introduction of a currency called the BRICS currency, which will be projected as an alternative to dollar. Now, this is essentially to do de-dollarization. Remember, BRICS nation, BRICS summit, the latest summit has been in 2024 in Russia, and the next summit is in 2025 in Brazil. Headquarters of BRICS, or the foundation of BRICS, was in Yekaterinburg, Russia. That is where the first summit happened. And its purpose is political and economical. And current chairman of BRICS is Luiz Lula da Silva, the president of Brazil. Currently, the president of Brazil, he is BRICS member. Now, if you compare the comparison of BRICS with G7, the total number of countries in BRICS is about 5, whereas in G7 there are 7 countries. The total area of BRICS is about 39.7 million. Now, the total area of G7 is 21.7 million. BRICS population accounts to 3.3 billion, while G7 is just about 0.8 billion. The population density is also very high in BRICS, and if you observe the GDP growth, that's where BRICS nations are seen as a threat by the Western nations. At this stage, the GDP growth of BRICS nations stands at about 4 to 5% year on year, whereas for G7 nations, it is 1.5 to 2% year on year. And the total GDP, if you see in terms of the value, while BRICS nations' actual nominal GDP is at 26.7 trillion, and for G7 nations together is 45.3 trillion. In terms of purchasing power parity GDP, the BRICS nations is 51.6 trillion. And G7 nations, the 7 of the largest nations together, they make just about 6.7 trillion. And as I said, BRICS nations, as of now, make 37% of world's GDP. Now, given that Donald Trump's tariffs and the way Donald Trump is behaving, and as of today, India is head of the state, head of the government, Honorable Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, went to Japan. If Modi is successful in getting Japan convinced to join BRICS, BRICS will account to 50% of world's GDP. Now, that is going to be a huge threat to America. You must wait and watch what all America tends to do with the world.